Standing up against racism is something I have to do because the end of the day, I'm white. I can walk into a white community and get away from it. An African American person cannot. They're always going to be black. So they carry that prejudice with them every place they go. I'm privileged to walk away from it if I want to. So to stay and fight it is a choice of mine.
Welcome to That Moment When. I'm Steve Goldblum. Father Micheal Pfleger is the white priest of Chicago's largest African-American Catholic congregation. He's been serving St. Sabina since 1981 and working to solve issues that matter most to his parishioners. Can you tell me, Reverend, a little bit about your ability to earn trust, acceptance in the black community and in a predominantly black congregation?
Black communities have always had white people, white police, white firemen, white store owners, white bus drivers. So there's always been white people in the black community. There has not been black people in the white community. What I learned real quickly was that I had this deep respect for in the African American community was people want to know, are you committed? Are you for real? And are you going to connect and identify with the neighborhood? They didn't want a savior. They didn't want someone who came in to tell them this is what we should do and this is how it should be. They wanted someone who would walk with them. You never pretend or dream or think that you know a community better than it knows itself.
And how did that relationship affect the relationship you had with your own family?
It was rough. I never forget after I adopted my oldest son, I ran into one of my cousins. He said, "Well, I think it's really cool that you adopted, but why an N?" I was called a wigger. I was called a racist against white people. My family really disconnected from me.
You think having a sense of social justice is nature or nurture?
Both. With faith communities, at least, in the last 25 years, they have abandoned social justice. I look back at the 60s and the faith communities were in the middle of social justice. The marches led by Dr. King, there were nuns and priests and they're marching. There were Jewish rabbis, there were imams, and now social justice was tag along connected with some committee or some group in the church, but it was no longer a part of the church. And that bothered me because learning from Dr. King, social justice is not a committee in the church. It is the DNA of our faith. Whether you're the Quran, you're the Torah, or the Bible, it is the DNA of our faith, and we've abandoned that.
How has your job evolved over the surge of gun violence in the city?
It became a lot more personal in 1998 when my youngest foster son was shot and killed. It was one of the most paralyzing, if not the most paralyzing thing that happened in my life. It was really a wrestling that went on between me and God. I got to the point of saying, God, if I go on, you have to give me the strength to fight this thing every day. I couldn't save my son, but I've got to save other kids from getting into this. The violence has become my primary focus, and working with the brothers who feel disposable, who feel forgotten, who feel abandoned. Just yesterday, I buried one of those brothers, shot and killed a week ago. If we don't care about them, if we don't love them, then we, I believe, as society, are co-conspirators of that violence. Probably 10 years ago, we started Friday night marches to say we're going to be present to our community and we're going to fight this epidemic of guns. You look in Chicago right now, that has become the poster boy of violence around the country. But you look at those 14 neighborhoods where most violence is going on, you find the same scenario. Double-digit unemployment, underfunded, underperforming schools, lack of mental health, neighborhoods that look like third world countries. I'm driving here today and I'm reminded again, I've seen all these cranes in downtown Chicago. When I go back into my community and see vacant land or abandoned buildings, and you see this tale of two cities of Chicago. Until we decide to equal those playing fields, all we're doing is band-aiding it. When I look at the lack of resources and lack of the realities of the South and West Side, I wonder why there's not more violence.
Why does the debate around gun violence center around mass shootings and not everyday killings in communities of color?
Mass shootings are primarily white people, and the other victims of violence are primarily black and brown.
Will you describe for me the moment when you recognize what you call the economic hopelessness and the silence that often follows the shootings, and the church's role in reversing that?
I always say the biggest failure of society today is not government and is not corporate. It is not education. The church, the synagogue, the mosque, we're the ones who are supposed to be creating moral compass, a moral conscience for people who not only raise it for themselves, but then become the voices. If we don't do that, we're the ones that have failed.